Have you almost given up hope that you can sleep well again because you've tried so many things, maybe even including functional lab testing? In today's episode, I talk with Dan for a sleep breakthrough session. Dan is an entrepreneur, and like many entrepreneurs, including myself, he deals with more stress than the average person. There's more pressure to succeed and make money, and it can feel less secure than a corporate job. Now, Dan has tried many things, including some of the lab tests that I use, and has lately been focusing on gut health to try to solve his sleep issues. So, we talk about some key things that have been overlooked so far that are likely affecting his sleep so he knows what to do next. I'm Martha Lewis, AKA the Sleep Detective. As a functional health coach for the past 5 years, I've helped myself and over 200 clients find and fix the root causes of their sleep issues. This is the Sleep Detective podcast, where you will finally understand why you can't sleep and how to fix it so you can consistently sleep 7 to 9 hours uninterrupted without drugs, even if you've already done some functional lab test. Hello, everyone. Today I have Dan on for a sleep breakthrough session. Thanks for being here, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, I'd love to get a little bit of history of what's been going on with your sleep recently and I guess in the past as well.
Okay, well, the first I remember being a super deep sleeper, maybe to the age of 21 or 22. And actually, it's my birthday today. I'm just turning
Well,
39.
happy
So it's been a
birthday.
little while. Thank you. I remember having stress related sleep issues in law school. And a lot of sleep issues for me have been maintenance rather than onset. So typically I'm waking up in the middle of the night. And that happened when I was in law school. If I were to guess at some of the origins, I was really bored in law school. I didn't love going there. Very few people do. And in my second year, I had decided that I was going to not go to class that much. I was just checking out. And I put on this brave front that, oh, I'm super confident, nothing will go wrong. But on the inside, I was concerned that my grades might suffer. I might not get the job that I want after law school.
Wow.
So I think that dissonance had me worrying. I was putting up this very brave, confident face to the outside world. Yes, I've decided not to go. There are not going to be any consequences. It's all good. But on the inside, I wasn't quite that confident.
Very interesting. Okay. But
Turned out well. I did get a good job after law school and decided I didn't want to do it. That's a whole other story. We
yeah.
don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But that's the first time I remember having sleep maintenance, kind of insomnia issues. And over the years have tried many different things. Everything from, the prescription to the non-prescription, over-the-counter sleeping pills to lots of meditation. I am let's see, I think I'm an 11-year daily meditator now. Meditation is a huge part of my life. Still doing it, even though it doesn't solve all sleep-related issues, it turns out. Um, Saunas, everything psychological you could imagine, from cognitive behavioral therapy to all kinds of more unconventional therapy. And most recently, I've gotten some results from a program called Right Sleep. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mm-mm.
It's a Texan neurologist who hypothesizes that a lot of sleep issues are tied to the gut, specifically vitamin D and vitamin B production.
Mhm.
So if you supplement with vitamin D and vitamin B, you can impact your sleep. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yes. Well, I definitely agree that the gut has a lot to do with sleep and affects a lot of other systems in the body. And, I noticed from the assessment that you have quite a lot of gut issues. So has that been going on for a while?
Yeah, yeah. Who knows exactly how long? The earliest I can remember was about 5 years ago, when I was living in New York City at the time when the pandemic hit New York. And the week that the pandemic hit New York, I had started a business. It was just an insanely, insanely stressful time. And I had been sleeping quite well for a time up until that point. And that week, I remember waking up with sort of throbbing in the stomach. So that I did some digging and worked with some functional medicine people, who suggested that the gut was a big factor.
Mm-hmm. And what came of that? Did anything help?
All kinds of tests, right?
Mhm.
Every kind of test you could imagine, all kinds of functional lab tests. And I would say, after working with many different naturopaths, functional medicine coaches, functional medicine doctors, I would say that there was some improvement, but I've always had a sense that something's missing. We haven't quite got to the real bottom of all of this.
Yeah, because it sounds like you're still having a lot of these gut issues, like you mentioned, burping after every meal and some bloating and, um, problems digesting fat, some loose stools, all those
Yep.
things.
Yep. Or those core issues remain unresolved 5 years later.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So something's definitely missing there. But it sounds like you're working on that right now.
Yeah, I did right sleep about a year ago, fell
Okay.
off for a time, and back on that bandwagon now, and it's definitely produced some improvement. It
Hmm.
requires a lot of patience. So, her thesis is that over the course of a year, there's going to be some ups and downs, but you stick with the program.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like your sleep problems aren't every night. It's like 3 nights a week, maybe. And
It really is quite tied to work. On the
yeah.
weekend, much easier to sleep.
Uh-huh.
So it can be a little up and down during the work week, but there's a lot of factors at play for sure. And yeah, in an average week, probably 3 or 4 nights a week, I may have the symptom of waking up in the middle of the night.
Right. Okay. And I mean, how many hours are you working? Are you working a lot or working late or what's happening
I
there?
think it's less the quantity and it's more just the weight, right? I love what I do. I don't work an insane number of hours. The work can be strenuous and demanding on body, mind, soul, but it's not an insane number of hours. You'd
Yeah.
look at the hours I used to work as a lawyer versus what I do now, and you would say, oh, okay, he treats himself relatively well. But I
Yeah.
think the weight of making decisions that are more impactful decisions than I've ever made before, I definitely wear the weight of it emotionally,
Yeah.
spiritually. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense and that's good to know. And I do think it's possible to decrease that without changing your job or your position or even how many hours you're working. Yeah. Handling that stress better is always possible for anyone, I think, because
Mhm.
stress isn't going to go away
Mhm.
unless you decide to retire suddenly. But
Not gonna happen.
yeah, right. And even then, like, there are always stressors coming up in life. So there's no guarantee of that. Okay, good to know. And yeah, I mean, you're doing so many of the right things for sure. Some things that stuck out to me, I think you mentioned drinking 3 glasses of water a day.
It's
Yeah.
it's yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm super systematic about water.
Gotcha. Because that's really important for flushing out toxins. So it's just,
Mhm.
one like seems so minor and it is pretty simple, but just, yeah, something that I noticed is definitely, getting at least 8 ounce glasses of water a day.
8 ounce glasses, okay.
Yeah. Or, half your body weight in ounces. So it does kind of vary per person a little bit too. But that's just so important for helping us flush out toxins
Are
that
you a big believer in water filters and the importance of the purity of the water?
definitely, yes. And I found, like the Brita water filters, the refrigerator water filters, like those aren't necessarily getting out all the heavy metals that can
Mm,
be found in tap water.
mm.
So it's definitely important to be drinking out of a like either bottled water that's been tested or a high quality water filter. Yeah, good question.
Is there a brand name that you swear by?
There's one called Pure Effects that is something that I recommend. I actually have one called Apex or APEC, APEC.
Mm.
So it's an under the counter filter. So you do have to, hook it up to the water line under the sink, and then there's a separate faucet that it comes out of. But I use that for all drinking water. I try to use it for cooking water. So, yeah, but that's really important too. I do see heavy metals in a lot of my clients, and for me, like I had really high uranium, because where I live in the mountains, it's in the soil here, and so I drank tap water for years, not knowing, and yeah, that can build up over time. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good question for sure.
Yeah.
And it's also important to have enough minerals and electrolytes in the water as well. So, like the water system that I have, it takes everything out. So the bad stuff, but even the good minerals.
Mm.
So it's really important to be replenishing with those. So something I now take every day is called Beam Minerals, and it's a liquid, and they have a electrolyze and a reboost. And ideally, you take them both together, and it just helps supply those trace minerals that we can be missing if you're drinking, or without any of those minerals in it. And I've also seen that it really helps balance minerals as well. So I took it for about 9 months, and then so I tested my minerals before with the hair test that I use. Did the B minerals for about 9 months, took the test again, and I didn't do anything else for mineral support. And they were just so much more in balance with each other, and all the heavy metals were gone. So, yeah, so I really like that. I think that's a great thing to add, especially if you're having distilled or reverse osmosis water. Okay, awesome. Another thing I noticed is you mentioned some either night sweats or hot flashes in the night.
That's less and less.
Okay.
I would have said, had you got me 6 months ago, I would have said, yeah, my body temperature at night seems to get quite hot.
Hmm.
That's really less the case. I don't know what I did to shift that. I did something to shift it, but what could have been going on there, do you think?
Well, I think of hormone imbalance.
Mhm.
So, I mean, sex hormones being out of balance or being
Mhm.
depleted. And
Mhm.
then I also think of cortisol. So, yeah, and I noticed some signs of cortisol as well. Being alert in the evening can be
Yep.
kind of that out of whack pattern
Yep.
and trouble regulating body temperature. But when our body releases cortisol, it increases our body temperature and heart rate and blood pressure. And so when that's happening in the middle of the night, then yeah, then that's going to wake you up. So,
Yeah, I did the Dutch test. I can't remember the results sitting here, but I
ah,
remember doing the Dutch test. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Yeah, because that's what I do too, to look at the cortisol pattern. But let's say it is high at night. Well, then we need to know why.
Mhm.
It's not enough just to know that. I mean, you can take a supplement to lower cortisol, but it's not addressing the root of, okay, well, why is your body releasing cortisol at night? And that
What are
can,
some of the common reasons?
yeah, so a pathogen in the gut,
Right.
liver detox issues, blood sugar imbalances, which, may be an issue for you based on the symptoms you checked off. I definitely want to start asking people about their diet specifically in these calls so I can really see that a lot more. Because that could also be a factor. But those are the top three things I see, especially for cortisol at night.
The diet, or let's say
Blood
brain balance
sugar.
could be
Mhm.
tied to diet.
Yes.
Well, and sorry, what were the other two?
Liver detox is a pathogen in the gut. And I can send you information about all of those, and I'll add them to the show notes for everyone listening as well too, so you can link to those things. But yeah, that's most commonly what I'm seeing for that.
I remember, so which test was it? Years ago, I did something GI. Does that sound right?
There's GI effects or
GI map.
okay.
And the GI map revealed some H. pylori, and different experts had different opinions about whether that
Mhm.
was an issue. Some people
Yep.
told me, oh, it's not a problem. Your level is fine. Other people said, no, it is an issue. You got to do something about it. So I
Yep.
remember I tried some interventions, and it's very hard as a layman to understand who to trust, who's
Right.
right, right.
Yep. Yes. But definitely with the burping you're experiencing, like that's definitely a huge sign of H. pylori. And
Mhm.
I say the same thing to my clients about H. pylori. Like some doctors and researchers say half the population has it. We've adapted to it. We're used to it. It's not a big deal. The other side of the spectrum is H. pylori causes ulcers. It's the number one cause of stomach cancer, which is rare. I'm kind of in the middle where it depends on the person. It depends on
Mhm.
the symptoms. It depends on what else is going on in the gut. So if someone has a parasite and candida, like to me, that's more important than a low level of H. pylori.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and I also look at digestion. So the GI map has a marker for elastase, which is an enzyme that digests protein. So if that's become depleted over time and there's H. pylori affects protein digestion. It
Mhm.
makes the stomach more neutral when we need it to be acidic. That's how we digest protein and get the minerals and nutrients and amino acids we need from the protein.
Mhm.
And so when that enzyme to digest protein is also low, then to me that means, okay, the body has had a hard time digesting protein for a while, and that enzyme's become depleted. The pancreas can't make enough of the enzyme to keep up with trying to digest the protein. And so in that case, and there aren't other pathogens going on, then I do recommend dealing with H. pylori, even if it's at a lower level. So it definitely depends on looking at the big picture of the GI map.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yes, it can be confusing, but I'm amazed. I mean, I see H. pylori in about 85% of my clients. And I know my colleagues see it at a high percentage in their clients with other, symptoms and issues.
Mhm.
So we just do see it at a higher rate than the 50% that's supposedly in the population. So my tendency is toward addressing it. It just might not be the first thing or the most important thing that I would look at.
And then I guess there's questions of, can we address all the things at the same time? Do different interventions affect one another? It gets very complicated because I remember trying lots of different H. pylori interventions as well as supplemental stomach acid to make the stomach more acidic, to better
Right.
digest proteins. Yes,
Yeah.
I went down all those rabbit holes for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And my approach is let's address H. pylori first, and then we build up stomach acid after that.
Mm.
But so, again, knowing the gut is an issue for you because of your symptoms. Like not everyone has gut symptoms or digestive issues, but the gut can still be a piece of the puzzle with sleep. But we know if someone has digestive symptoms that it's definitely a piece of the puzzle. Like we know that. And it just depends on, what's happening for everyone is going to be different. Yeah. But it's definitely a piece of the puzzle. But I also see like it's more than just the gut, because by the time you're having digestive issues, and let's say you aren't digesting protein well, then minerals have become depleted or out of balance because you aren't absorbing nutrients from food as well.
Mhm.
It's going to affect hormones, especially if the body's making cortisol to deal with inflammation and stress from, anything being out of balance in the body or from life being stressful. Then that takes away resources from sex hormones. And so they get out of balance or depleted.
Mhm.
Um, Pathogens in the gut are going to affect liver detox and make that not work properly. When the gut isn't healthy, it affects our neurotransmitters. So then we're not producing enough serotonin and GABA and dopamine that we need to be able to feel calm and able to sleep. So I just see the body as everything is connected because
Mhm.
it's, and so the gut's affecting everything else and everything else is affecting the gut. And so I really believe in, okay, well, let's look at everything that we can and help the body get back in balance as a whole. And that's going to be the fastest way to get better
Mhm.
and most effective way.
Mm.
So, yeah,
Where do you want to go next?
I think it's as simple as, yeah, increasing water intake from high quality water, um, possibly looking at hormones and cortisol
Mhm.
again. And yeah, and really addressing gut health and finding out what's going on there.
And so the diet is definitely going to play a role there. And maybe if you're in a place where it's harder to digest protein, maybe turning down the protein for a little while until the ability to digest protein returns.
Yeah, well, I actually recommend helping digest protein instead of just cutting it down, because protein is really important and we need those amino acids, we need the minerals from it. So I actually don't recommend cutting down, especially for very long. Instead, you could do like bitters or apple cider vinegar before meals to help with
Mhm.
digestion, or even a digestive enzyme,
Mhm.
depending on if that's what, results show could be helpful. Like I would recommend that versus cutting down on protein, because we need the protein also to balance blood sugar. And
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, for so many reasons. So yeah, good question.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Anything else?
What was I going to say? I mean, I think you can tell from me, this journey is a complicated one. And, I've gone through the journey of thinking about uh, And I've gone through the journey of thinking about, boy, it would be nice to not have to learn this stuff yourself. But I'm learning more and more. You really do, as a patient, have to learn as much as you can. And the process of working with a professional has to become a dialogue, right?
Mhm.
Where you're more informed than probably the average layman is. So I think it's great that you're doing a podcast and helping people understand more.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad. Yeah, and I think, you've done a lot of these things too that I'm even talking about now, and it just to me, something's been missed, right? Like,
Mhm.
you have looked at the gut. It sounds like you've done the Dutch, but, and maybe it's neurotransmitters, maybe it's minerals, maybe it's heavy metals, but they're just pieces of the puzzle that have been missed, and that's why you haven't fully recovered. So, you know, just encourage you not to give up. And then
Yeah.
just because you've tried all these things doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you can't get better.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Thank you.
All right, Dan, you're welcome. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
You can also sign up for a free sleep breakthrough call that will be aired on this podcast. You'll fill out assessment and then we'll meet on Zoom. And I'll tell you the 3 things to do right now that will have the biggest impact on your health and sleep. You can sign up at the link in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.